Hey there, retro gaming fans, welcome back to the channel where we deep dive into the classics that define a generation. The NES, Nintendo's little gray box that packed a mighty punch, gave us some of the most memorable games in history, from saving the princess to blasting aliens. The NES offered a diverse library that kept us glued to our screens, blowing in our cartridges and mastering those two-button controllers. Now, the last two times we explored some true gems, but you, the fans, pointed out that the NES library is so much more to offer and pointed out that I missed some truly awesome games. So I'm back with more NES nostalgia with 10 more of the best the NES has to offer. Let's begin with a game that I actually had planned on talking about but forgot to mention in a previous list, Guardian Legend. Released in 1988 by Compile and IREM, this game is a unique blend of top-down shooting action and Zelda-like exploration. If you ever played it, buckle up because you're in for a wild ride. The story of the Guardian Legend is simple but effective. You play as the titular Guardian, an android warrior tasked with saving Earth by stopping an alien-infested planet known as Nanju from colliding with our planet. To do this, you must explore Nanju's labyrinthine corridors, destroy its 10 safety devices, and defeat a host of bizarre and dangerous enemies. It is a straightforward premise, but it sets the stage for the gameplay to shine. What makes the Guardian Legend stand out is its unique gameplay. It's a hybrid of two distinct genres, a top-down shooter and an action-adventure. The game seamlessly transitions between these modes, offering a variety of gameplay experiences that keep things absolutely fresh. In shooter mode, it's a fast-paced, with enemies swarming from all directions as you blast your way through. In exploration mode, it's more deliberate. You'll be solving puzzles, finding keys, and navigating mazes. The balance between these two styles is nearly absolutely perfect, and the game rarely feels repetitive. As you explore Nanju, you'll discover a vast arsenal of weapons and power-ups, each with its own unique ability, from rapid-fire lasers to devastating grenades. There's a weapon for every situation. You can switch between these weapons on the fly, adding a layer of strategy to the already intense gameplay. The variety keeps the combat exciting, and experimenting with different combinations is half the fun. Now, the Guardian Legend is not a game for the faint of heart. It's challenging to say the least, and the difficulty ramps up quickly. Enemies are relentless and bosses can be downright brutal. But the game is fair, it gives you the tools you need to succeed, and it's all about learning patterns, upgrading weapons, and managing your resources. If you're a fan of tough but rewarding gameplay, this game will definitely scratch that itch. However, we can't talk about the NES game without mentioning the music. The Guardian Legend has a stellar soundtrack that perfectly complements the action on the screen. The music is catchy, energetic, and at times haunting, setting the tone for your adventure, and the sound effects, though simple, are satisfying, especially when you're laying waste to hordes of enemies. The Guardian Legend may not have achieved the same level of fame as other NES classics, but it has earned a cult following for a reason. Its unique blend of genres, challenging gameplay, and memorable music make it a standout title in the NES library. If you've never played it, it's definitely worth tracking down. It's a game that showcases the creativity and ambition of developers during the NES era, when they were pushing the limits of what the hardware could do. Now, coming in at the number 9 spot are two games I decided to combine into one spot, Fire Emblem 1 and 2. However, this game never made it to the States since it was made for the Famicom, but it's still considered a classic. So in 1990, a tactical RPG was released on the Famicom that would go on to become one of Nintendo's most beloved franchises, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, also known as Fire Emblem 1. Introduced gamers to a new kind of strategy game, blending deep storytelling with challenging grid-based combat. But this was just the beginning today. We're diving into both Fire Emblem 1 and its sequel, Fire Emblem Gaiden, to explore how these games laid the foundation for a franchise that continues to thrive over 3 decades later. Fire Emblem 1 wasn't just another RPG, it was a pioneering title that combined tactical combat with a rich narrative. Created by, and I'm going to butcher this name, Shuzu Keiga, and developed by Intelligent Systems, the game introduced players to the land of Arcania, where Prince Marth must reclaim his kingdom and defeat the evil dragon Medeus. Shuzu Keiga envisioned a game where every decision mattered, where the loss of a unit was a permanent, a concept that would become a hallmark of the series. Players had to carefully plan their moves, manage their units, and make sacrifices along the way. Then just 2 years later, in 1992, Fire Emblem Gideon, also known as Fire Emblem 2, was released. This sequel took a different approach, introducing a dual protagonist narrative, with Alum and Celia, and blending traditional tactical gameplay with dungeon exploration and RPG elements. Gideon explained the world of Fire Emblem, introducing new mechanics like the promotion of classes, which would become a staple in future titles. Fire Emblem 2's world map allowed players to choose their battles, and the addition of villages and dungeons added a layer of exploration not seen in the first game. The game's experimental nature was both praised and criticized, but it set the stage for what Fire Emblem could be, a series unafraid to innovate. The DNA of Fire Emblem 1 and Fire Emblem 2 can be felt in every game that followed, from the introduction of support conversations to the intricate storylines and strategic depth. These early games laid the groundwork for a series that continues to captivate players around the world. Fire Emblem 1 and 2 may have started as humble NES titles, but their legacy is anything but small. They are the foundation of a tactical empire, one that has grown and evolved, yet never forgotten its roots. As we look back on these games, we're reminded of how far the series has come and how it all began with a prince, a dragon, and a dream. Coming in at number 8 is Crystallis. Released by SNK in 1990, Crystallis is an action RPG that combines fast-paced combat, intricate puzzles, and a post-apocalyptic story that's surprisingly deep for an 8-bit game. It's one of those titles that might not have been on your radar back in the day, but if you missed it, you missed out on something special. Set in a world devastated by a global thermonuclear war, Crystallis takes place in a time when civilization has regressed to a medieval state, and humanity lives under the shadow of mutant creatures and dark magic. You play as an unnamed protagonist who awakens from a cryogenic sleep, only to discover that the world has drastically changed and it's up to you to prevent an evil empire from harnessing a super weapon called the Tower to dominate what's left of humanity. Now, right from the start, Crystallis grabs your attention with its engaging story and unique setting, but it's the gameplay that truly shines. At its core, Crystallis is an action RPG where you'll be doing plenty of exploration, monster slaying, and item collecting. The game's combat system is where it really stands out, though. You wield various elemental swords, each with its own unique ability, which you'll need to master to overcome enemies and puzzles alike. Now, the Wind Sword, Fire Sword, Water Sword, and Thunder Sword aren't just for show. Each one has a specific role in solving puzzles and defeating enemies with particular weaknesses. As you progress, you can charge these swords to unleash powerful attacks, adding a strategic layer to the combat. The world of Crystallis is expansive and varied, with different regions offering their own challenges and secrets. The game's map design encourages exploration, rewarding players with hidden items, upgrades, and crucial story elements. One moment, you're navigating a dense forest, and the next, you're trekking through icy mountains or exploring ancient ruins. The variety keeps the game fresh and exciting, and the pace spot on. Crystallis also blends in traditional RPG elements like leveling up, equipping armor, and using magic, with its action-oriented gameplay. However, for those of you who are not like me and hate really grinding games, Crystallis keeps the grinding to an absolute minimum. Instead, it focuses on more streamlined experiences, keeping the player engaged with a steady flow of progression and new challenges. The soundtrack of Crystallis is one of the unsung heroes of the NES era. Composed by Yoko Osaka, the music perfectly complements the game's atmosphere with tracks that range from adventurous and upbeat to haunting and mysterious. And while the graphics might seem dated by today's standards, they are impressive for the time, with detailed sprites and environments that brought the post-apocalyptic world to life. Sadly, Crystallis didn't reach the same level of fame as some of its peers, but it has earned a cult following over the years. Its blend of action, exploration, and storytelling makes this standout title on the NES, and is a game that still holds up remarkably well today. If you're a fan of action RPGs and you've never experienced Crystallis, do yourself a big favor and give it a try. It is worth one of those hidden gems that truly deserves more recognition. Taking its way to the number 7 spot is Zen Intergalactic Ninja. Released in 1993, Zen Intergalactic Ninja was developed by Konami based on the comic book series of the same name, created by Steve Stern and Dan Coate. The comics follow the adventures of Zen, a blue-skinned alien trained in the martial arts, as he battles against evil forces threatening the universe. It was a time when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were all the rage, and Zen was clearly Konami's attempt to tap into that same energy. In true Konami fashion, however, Zen Intergalactic Ninja is no walk in the park. This action platformer combines side-scrolling levels with a variety of other gameplay styles, including top-down stages, beat-em-up sections. You play Zen using his martial arts skills and environmental awareness to take down enemies and save the planet from the evil Lord Cantanimus. What really sets Zen apart from all the other NES games of the time is its focus on environmental themes. Each level is designed around an environmental hazard: oil spills, deforestation, toxic waste, you name it, Zen is here to stop it. It's like Captain Planet, but with more ninja moves and less catchy theme music. Now, if you've ever played Zen Intergalactic Ninja, you know this game doesn't mess around. This game is notoriously difficult, with precise platforming, tough enemies, and limited continues. Each level is a test of your patience and skills, and just when you think you've got it figured out, the game throws another curveball at you. But hey, if you're into tough as nails NES games, this one will definitely scratch the itch. Just be prepared to see that game over screen a lot. Graphically, Zen Intergalactic Ninja is a mixed bag. The sprite work on Zen and the enemies is solid, and with plenty of detail and animation. The backgrounds, while a bit repetitive in some levels, do a good job of conveying the environmental themes. The color palette is bright and vibrant, which is a nice contrast to the game's darker themes. Then there's the soundtrack, composed by, here's another name I'm going to butcher, Miyachu Yamane, who would later go on to score Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The music in Zen Intergalactic Ninja is upbeat and catchy, fitting the action-packed gameplay. Each track is memorable in its own right, making the experience just a little more enjoyable, even when you're dying for the 100th time. So, is Zen Intergalactic Ninja worth checking out today? If you're a fan of challenging NES games with unique themes and solid gameplay variety, then absolutely. It may not have the same name recognition as some of the other titles of that era, but it's a hidden gem that deserves a spot in your collection. Coming in at number 6 is Nightshade. Released in 1992 by Beam Software, Nightshade is a unique title that blends several genres, making it a standout from the typical NES library. If you're into point-and-click adventures or old-school beat-em-ups, you're in for a treat here. Nightshade was developed by Beam Software, the same folks behind the Back to the Future games on the NES, but don't worry, they've learned from their past mistakes and created something really special this time around. Nightshade was Beam Software's attempt to push the NES hardware to its absolute limits, combining various gameplay elements into one ambitious package. The results? A game that was both innovative and challenging, but also overlooked due to the NES being on its way out in the early 90s. At its core, it's a detective game with action elements. You play as Nightshade, a trench coat wearing vigilante, out to save Metro City from the clutches of the evil villain Thuteth. The gameplay is a mix of point and click adventure, where you solve puzzles, gather clues, and interact with the environment, and a side-scrolling action sequence where you take down thugs and villains. It's a balancing act between brain and brawn. One of the coolest things about Nightshade is its sense of humor. The game doesn't actually take itself too seriously, with plenty of quirky dialogue options and bizarre characters that adds to its charm. You'll find yourself in some pretty ridiculous situations, like convincing a librarian that you're a master of disguise or fighting a mime with an invisible wall. And let's not forget the popularity system, where your actions throughout the game determine how much the city supports you. It's a neat mechanic that influences the story, making each playthrough a bit different. But don't let the humor fool you. Nightshade is no walk in the park. This game is notorious for its difficulty. Puzzles can be cryptic, combat can be tough, and there's no save features. That's right, if you mess up, it's back to the beginning. Which makes the game's permadeath mechanic even more intense. You need quick thinking and sharp reflexes to survive in this one. Graphically, Nightshade is impressive for an NES title. The game uses a darker color palette to match its noir theme, and the character sprites are detailed especially for late NES release, and the soundtrack, while not as memorable as other NES classics, complements the game's atmosphere perfectly. It's moody, mysterious, and fits the detective vibe. So why did Nightshade fly under the radar? Well, part of it was timing, because by '92 the NES was on its last legs and gamers were shifting their attention to the Super Nintendo. But despite its obscurity, Nightshade has earned a cult following over the years, thanks to its unique blend of genres and offbeat humor. Coming in at number 5 is a crossover worth talking about, Battletoads and Double Dragon. Released in 1993 by Rare, Battletoads and Double Dragon brought together two of the most beloved brawler franchises of the time. On one side, you have the ultra-violent, shape-shifting Toads from Battletoads, and on the other side, the street-fighting brothers from Double Dragon. It was a match made in brawler heaven. Rare, also known for pushing the limits of the NES hardware, took on the challenge of combining these two universes into a single game, and boy, did they deliver. The story kicks off with the Dark Queen, the main antagonist from Battletoads, teaming up with the evil Shadow Boss from Double Dragon. Their plan? To take over the galaxy, of course. But our heroes, Rash, the Zit Pimple from the Battletoads universe, along with Billy and Jimmy Lee, aren't about to let that happen. Battletoads and Double Dragon blend the best of both worlds. You can choose to play as any of the 5 characters, each with their own unique moves and abilities. The Battletoads bring their trademark exaggerated attacks, like turning their fists into massive hammers, while the Double Dragon brothers stick to their classic martial arts moves. The game also shines in its co-op mode, where you and a friend can team up to take down enemies together. However, be warned, friendly fire is on, so be careful not to accidentally knock each other out. The levels in Battletoads and Double Dragon are as varied as they are challenging, from the claustrophobic corridors of the Colossus spaceship to the dizzying heights of the space shuttle level. Each stage offers something new. You'll encounter a mix of platforming sections, enemy gauntlets, and those infinite speeder bike levels that Battletoads fans both love and fear. Graphically, Battletoads and Double Dragon is one of the best looking games on the NES. The sprites are large in detail with smooth animation that bring the characters to life. The backgrounds are colorful and varied, helping to set the tone of each level. And let's not forget that soundtrack. The game features an adrenaline-pumping score that perfectly complements the action. Each stage has its own theme, and the sound effects pack a satisfying punch, literally. If there's one thing this game is known for, it's the difficulty level. Battletoads and Double Dragon doesn't pull any punches. The enemies are tough, the platforming sections are tricky, and the bosses will test your reflexes. But that's all part of the fun. Mastering this game is a badge of honor for any retro gamer. Despite its difficulty, Battletoads and Double Dragon has remained a fan favorite over the years. It's a testament to the game's quality that it still holds up today. It's often cited as one of the best beat-em-ups on the NES. Coming in at number 4 is a game I previously reviewed, Contra. First released in the arcades by Konami in 1987, the game was a smash hit, with its fast-paced action, 2-player co-op, and intense difficulty. Given its success, it wasn't long before Contra made its way to the NES in 1988. But this wasn't just a simple port. The NES version of Contra was a unique experience, with levels designed specifically for the home console, but it quickly became a fan favorite. Contra throws you into the boots of two elite commandos, Bill Riser and Lance Bean, also known as Mad Dog and Scorpion. Your mission? To stop the alien menace known as the Red Faction from taking over the world. The game's story may not be deep, but the atmosphere is top-notch, with each level transporting you to different environments, from dense jungles to enemy bases, and eventually into the heart of the alien lair. The controls are tight, the action is relentless, and the difficulty is downright brutal. But it's the challenge that keeps you coming back for more. The game features 8 levels, each packed with enemies, traps, and epic boss battles. One of the game's defining features is the arsenal of weapons, like the machine gun, spurt gun, and a laser, each adding a unique twist to how you tackle the game. Of course, we can't talk about Contra without mentioning the infamous Konami code, up, down, left, right, BA, start. Entering this iconic code on the title screen grants you 30 lives, which, trust me, you'll need. This cheat becomes so popular that it's now synonymous with the game itself and has even become a part of gaming culture as a whole. The success of Contra led to a series of sequels, most notably Super C on the NES, which continued the tradition of challenging gameplay and co-op fun. The Contra franchise will go on to spawn multiple platforms and generations, solidifying its place as one of the greatest action series in gaming history. Even today, Contra is remembered as a masterpiece of the 8-bit era. So why does Contra still matter today? For one, it's the standard of co-op action games. Its influence can be seen in countless titles that follow, from the indie hit Cuphead to the modern Contra games themselves. More than that, Contra is a reminder of a time when games were all about being pure, unfiltered challenge. A test of skill and endurance that only the most determined could conquer. Flying in at number 3 is Rocket Ranger. Released by System 3 in 1990, Rocket Ranger is an interesting hybrid of platforming and strategy, set in an alternate 1940s universe where rocket-powered heroes fight against the evil forces of the Nazi regime. It's a game that combines action-packed sequences with strategic planning. You play as a rocket-powered hero tasked with thwarting the plans of a sinister scientist. The game features a mix of side-scrolling action and strategic elements. You start by choosing your mission from a world map, each one presenting a unique set of challenges. The side-scrolling sections are where the action really happens. You use your jetpack to fly around, dodging enemy fire and taking down foes. The controls might feel a bit clunky at first, but once you get the hang of them, it's quite fun maneuvering through the levels. Between missions, you'll manage your resources and plan your next move. This is where the strategy comes in. You need to make decisions about how to allocate your resources, which technologies to research, and how to approach each mission. It adds a layer of depth to the sets, Rocket Ranger apart from more straightforward action games. One of the highlights of the game is its boss fights. Each one is a unique challenge that requires a combination of quick reflexes and strategic planning. They're memorable and add a nice touch of excitement to the game. So is Rocket Ranger worth your time? If you're a fan of NES classics and enjoy a mix of action and strategy, definitely give it a shot. Its unique blend of gameplay, mechanics, and interesting setting making it a standout title, even if it's not as well known as some of the bigger names of the era. And at number 2 is Dragon Warrior 3. Released in 1990 by Enix, this classic RPG is often hailed as one of the greatest games of its era. Dragon Warrior 3 is the third installment in the Dragon Quest series and is set in a sprawling fantasy world. It follows the story of a young hero who set out to defeat the evil Baramos and save the world from impending doom. This game was a major leap forward for the series, introducing new features that would become staples in future RPGs. One of the most exciting aspects of Dragon Warrior is its innovative class system. Players can choose from various classes including Warrior, Mage, and Thief, each with unique abilities and spells. This system allows for extensive customization and strategy, giving players the freedom to build their party to suit their playstyle. Dragon Warrior 3 also features an expansive world to explore, from lush forests to treacherous dungeons. Dragon Warrior 3 offers a variety of environments filled with secrets and challenges. The day and night cycles and random encounters add depth to the exploration, making every journey feel fresh and unpredictable. The battle system is turn-based and it's strategic as ever. Players must carefully choose their attack spells and items to overcome the diverse array of monsters that inhabit the world. The game's difficulty is well balanced, providing a satisfying challenge without being overly punishing. The story of Dragon Warrior 3 is a classic tale of good versus evil, but is told with a depth and nuance that makes it stand out. The protagonist, along with their party, must uncover the truth behind the dark forces threatening the world. The game's narrative is engaging and well written, with memorable characters and plot twists that keep players invested from start to finish. Along with a variety of side quests and optional content, adding extra layers to the already rich narrative, these side quests often reward players with powerful items, rare abilities, and deeper lore about the game's world. Dragon Warrior 3 has left a lasting legacy in the world of RPGs. Its innovative mechanics and compelling story have influenced many games that followed. The game was later remade for the Game Boy Color, allowing a new generation of players to experience its magic. Its impact is still felt today, and remains a beloved classic among retro gaming enthusiasts. So before we get to the number 1 spot, here's a quick list of some honorable mentions. Still sitting proud at the number 1 spot is Astyanax. Released in 1989 by Jellicoe, this hidden gem contains fantasy, platforming, and some epic boss battles. Astyanax tells the tale of a high school student named aptly Astyanax who gets transported to a fantasy world to save a princess and defeat an evil sorcerer. It's a bit of a classic kid from Earth becomes hero story, but it's packed with charm and action. Astyanax is a side-scrolling action game that blends platforming with combat. You fight through various levels, each filled with monsters, traps, and tricky platforming sections. The controls are pretty straightforward. You move, jump, and attack, but don't let that simplicity fool you. The game can be quite challenging. The game features a variety of weapons and items that you can collect and use. Each weapon has its own unique properties, which adds a strategic layer to the gameplay. You'll need to make smart choices to take on different enemies and bosses you'll face. The level design in Astyanax is pretty varied. You'll traverse through forests, castles, and even a magical tower. Each level has its own theme and unique challenges, keeping the gameplay fresh and engaging. The stages are well designed, with a mix of platforming and combat sections. Some levels require precise jumping and timing, while others test your combat skills against waves of enemies. Astyanax features some solid visuals for its time. The character designs and enemy sprites are vibrant and fit well with the fantasy theme. The backgrounds are detailed and help set the mood for each level. The soundtrack is another highlight. The music complements the fantasy settings and helps enhance the overall experience. It's catchy and adds a lot of the game's atmosphere. One of the standout features of Astyanax is its boss fights. The game has the memorable bosses that require you to learn their patterns and react quickly. Each boss fight feels like a test of your skills and adds to the game's challenge. So, was Astyanax worth your time? Well, if you're into action platformers with a fantasy twist and don't mind a bit of a challenge, definitely give it a try. It's got a lot to offer, and it's fun throwback to the golden age of NES gaming. Alright fellow gamers, that wraps up the look at 10 more of the best of the NES games you absolutely need to play. From the intense action of Ninja Gaiden to the charming adventure in DuckTales, these titles are pure gold of the NES library. We've traveled through classic platformers like Super Mario Bros. 3 and explored the depths of Metroid, uncovering secrets and revealing unforgettable moments. We've experienced strategic battles in Fire Emblem and faced off against foes in Punch-Out! But wait, there's even more to discover. Whether you're revisiting these classics or playing them for the first time, there's no denying that timeless appeal of these NES gems. So grab your controllers, dive back into the iconic adventures, and keep the retro spirit alive. And if you enjoyed this roundup, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content on hidden gems and fan favorites. And let us know in the comments which NES games you think deserve a spot on the list. Until next time, keep gaming and stay nostalgic.